for anybody to watch. And so like that's one of the things that's exciting for me because it's not going to be for everybody, but for a group of individuals in our community who have had issues with the criminal justice system and are having mental health, AODA, or issues with the criminal justice system, that programming through the attic reduces that optional component of it and then might really fit the needs for a particular subset of the population that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sean, how does one become an active participant in the attic program?
Yeah, that's a good question. So clients are referred to us usually by their agents, at least for the AODA program that we have here and then our residential facilities as well. So the majority of our business is done with the Department of Corrections and here with Marathon County. So they would be referred by their agents. Typically that population who needs housing would be referred that way. Yeah.
Thank you. Sean, you said your goal is 70% success rate. What is your success rate right now?
With the pilot program that we ran, do some quick math here, 10 out of 12. So is that 83%? And that was just 12 individuals that we were able to help and that maintain housing 1 year after they received the funding for that.
And what time frame was that?
That was back in 2022, and from the time that they moved into their location, we just measured a 12-month period from that time.
Okay, that's a good success rate.
Yep.
From what I see. And then the letter of support that you're looking for from the county level, at least. Can you explain a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, it's a general letter outlining the task force or the county's support for us finding funding sources for this type of program. It's nothing specific, but just stating, hey, we know what ADDIC's trying to do, and we support their efforts in this.
Okay. Are you tied in with Judicare?
No.
No. Okay. Didn't know if that was part of the transition.
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can I ask one more thing, Sean? Just how successful are you or known with agents actually referring folks to attic? Because we've had a lot of people referred into our programming by agents, but only a few have been part of attic. So has that been a challenge for you, for all the agents to know you exist and be referring?
I think that agents know we are here. And I know that agents have a lot of options within the DOC to refer people to. So, that's going to vary depending on what that client's needs are. And, we get new agents and, so we have to communicate with agents regularly about what we do and what we offer. Yeah.
So, thought that's based on our experience at the police department and the different individuals we have trying to house people is, in a general sense, we have found it incredibly difficult to house people. It's not always because they don't have the dollars necessary to pay rent. It has to do with choices they may have made, a criminal history or an eviction history, and given within Marathon County as a whole, the supply and demand issue we have with housing and the shortage of housing, it leaves a landlord the opportunity to take the least risky applicant for that rental unit. And so the idea of having built into your grant application or your program, the ability to incentivize or to some degree, as I read through that, like insure the landlord that any loss they might have or any risk associated that they're taking, it's mitigated through having that reserve fund or those type of resources built into your program. So I just, in a perfect world, that wouldn't be necessary. But in our world here right now, I think it absolutely is, or we're not going to be able to find landlords that are willing to rent because they don't have to, and they have other applicants for those places. So I just thought that was worthy of sharing.
I think that's a good point.
You're good.
Go ahead, Terry.
In regard to what you're speaking about, Chief, I can speak personally. I had in the past owned rental properties, and we were approached by someone from the healthcare center asking us to rent to the person they were representing. And for us, we did do that, and we did have other applicants, but for us, I think it was the representation of the person that came to us and how they represented that individual and how thorough they were about what they were represented. And it did not turn out to be a good situation for us for reasons, for many reasons, but the reason we chose to rent to them was because of the representation of the individual. So I think that plays a huge part in getting accommodations for those people.
And I was going to ask the question also, how difficult is it to find housing in this day and age?
It's been tricky, to say the least. When you combined the cost of housing with people who may have lengthy criminal histories or history where they've been evicted and things like that, it makes it even more tough. But that's one of the reasons why, as you talked about, Chief Barnes, that us providing that directly to the landlord, the funding is of great benefit, and doing our best to mitigate loss that may occur if something happens, at least temporarily, so that we can make sure that our reputation is intact, but also being able to help the landlord so that they continue to work with us too. We want to build long-term relationships with those landlords.
Okay, is there affordable housing out there?
I guess it depends on what you how you define affordable. I think it's out there. But I also find that there is a lot of people that need affordable housing too. So there's a long line of those types of housing opportunities, and how those tenants are chosen and selected is not really out in my wheelhouse of knowledge.
So if you can't find them housing, then what do they do?
Well, typically, it depends. If they are a client with the Department of Corrections, there's some resources, temporary housing resources that they offer as well. And sometimes they have to stay with family, friends, things like that. So it varies. Unfortunately, some people end up unhoused. So that's definitely an avenue that we want to try to prevent as much as we can.
Okay, and when you say agent, are you talking, when they come out of incarceration, they work with parole officer or somebody else? How do you define agent?
Yeah, so it would be an agent that works either with probation or parole, so people who are released from prison and they are on parole, or people who are sentenced to community supervision with the Department of Corrections.
Okay. Other questions? One came to mind for me is the wraparound services. What wraparound services do you use? Do you use county resources or other wraparound services?
Here locally, Marathon County contracts with ADDIC to provide AODA services. And so part of those AODA services, we provide case management services, meaning that clients are assigned to a case manager who will help them with finding employment, help them with their cognitive thinking skills and using cognitive behavioral treatment resources. And then they're also usually assigned a AODA counselor who then also meets with them regularly to address their AODA and mental health needs are typically referred elsewhere. We do have a part-time mental health person that helps with that too. So they're seeing a case manager, they're seeing a counselor. They're also typically participating in our day reporting services, so they're getting drug tested as well. And then there's constant communication between us and the agent as well.
Do you contract those counseling services, or do you have them on staff, or?
Yeah, we have them on SAPs.
Oh, you do?
So
Okay.
that's part of the contract that Marathon County has with ADDIC is to provide those services.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Are you seeking a motion from, are we using Robert's rules to determine whether this task force would sign all of us with our names on it to be in support of their grant application? I just want to be clear, like, what is the ask of us?
Well, maybe I'll start and let Sean take it from there. This also went through public safety and it's going to county board tomorrow and to be voted on Tuesday. Essentially, the short answer, yes. It's a request from Attic Correctional Services to have Marathon County, and we're doing that through the board. And Sean's specific request, I believe, of this group is to have the homeless task force sign a letter of support that Attic can then use with various potential funding sources
Right.
to seek funds. So whether it's a grant application for funds through the state, private funding, what have you, just a general letter of support in support of the program.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Motion to support a letter of support for Attic Services?
Yeah, I would second that.
This looks like, if I may, Mr. Chair, it looks like this is only listed, however, for
Educational,
education. So
okay.
the good news for Sean is that you've gotten a lot of education today, and based on my sense of the consensus in the room at your next meeting.
I'll save my motion.
We can put it on the
for the
agenda.
next meeting.
We can put it on the agenda for discussion and possible action for next.
Thank you,
meeting.
Clerk Trueblood, for being the Roberts
Thank you.
Rules
Thank you.
Chief.
Sure. So we can put that on the next agenda for next week.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Can we have a draft of a letter of support available for that meeting so we can see what that looks like?
Yeah, I believe there's already one at the county level, right? Or not yet?
If there's not one in the packet, we will get one in the packet
Thank
for your
you.
next meeting.
All right. Anything else for Sean? Thank you, Sean, for the presentation.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is discussion on the no address documentary. Craig, if you could speak to that.
Sure. So No Address, it's actually Americans with No Address. It was a documentary that was put together after the research took place for the movie No Address, because as they were planning the movie, they went throughout the country meeting with people who experienced homelessness, but also with agencies and others that have been effective in trying to meet the needs throughout the country. And so there's a companion documentary to that film. And so we are able with the we were with the Grand Theater has pretty much made it part of their community engagement series. And so this is something that we're sponsoring along with the Wausau Police Department and Communities Partners Campus, and the Grand Theater has graciously made it part of their community engagement series. And so this is going to be on Tuesday night, the 25th of March. So that's this coming Tuesday night. Good response within it's a free event, but the Grand is encouraging people to go online to their events page and say they're coming, so they know how many people to have. And in the first day of that link being open, there was 98 people. So I'm not sure where it stands now, but we're expecting a pretty good turnout. And then we've actually put the date of that specifically so that it made it very convenient for both the county board and the Wausau Council after their meetings to come and participate if they would like to. And then we've made an invite to probably about 10 to 12 agencies that interact with our on-house community to have sign up for tables afterwards so that if people are moved to action as a result of the documentary, they can talk with people immediately afterwards. And so it's something we're excited about. I think it's going to help people see that there are solutions out there. There's effective things that we can do to address the crisis that we have. And so, yeah, so that's a wide open invite. We want to get as many people as the grand will fit to come in, see the documentary, and then hopefully interact and take some kind of action afterwards.
All right, thank you, Craig. I know some of us have seen the documentary. I have. I watched the movie. I believe it was last week at Cedar Creek. It was they were only there for a short time. It's excellent, and it really hits home when you see what's going on, and you can tie it into what's going on in our community as well. So, go ahead, Chief.
I mean, one of the things when I first watched the documentary that as I sent an email out to everybody that I thought should see it, at least from the city end, and it was, how do we end up where we're at right now? I think this movie tries to answer that question, and how did homelessness grow and why is it continuing to grow? And then what this research that they documented was traveling throughout the country, looking at different services and different programs, some of which that are really struggling because of policies that were made to move the needle, and the identifying other communities, all with very different programming that are having success at reducing their homeless populations and improving the lives of those individuals. So how did we get here, and what are some ideas and what things might work here is, for me, that's the ideal takeaway for the people watching the documentary.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the Americans with No Address documentary? All right, thank you. Discussion and possible action, item number 4. A, discussion on resolution R 1225. It's in the packet. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at that? That was voted on at the last county board meeting in support of funding along with the city of Wausau for the shelter services. Any discussion on the resolution?
In conjunction with that, has there been response for the RFP that you put out?
The RFP response is due March 28th. So my hope is that we see that we get proposals, number one, and 2 is the RFP left open the opportunity for other organizations that might not historically be in the business of providing shelter to really look at, like, what are some of the niche type needs. And so, for example, one of the takeaways from meeting with several people that are unhoused was, I'll just give you this as an example, the challenge of attempting to maintain sobriety on their own. So one of the women I was talking to had been sober off methamphetamine and alcohol for 2.5 weeks and was really proud of what she was doing, but she also spends time in shelter. And the distance is 18 inches from bed to bed. And the idea of trying to maintain your sobriety while the person 18 inches away from you is far from sober. So I look at it through the lens of, which might be, you're impaired at this moment. This is a good shelter option for you with people who are committed, or this is sober shelter, or this is for women who are unsheltered, shelter for them. So the the RFP invited people with ideas to maybe serve a smaller population, but that's very specific and that they can focus on to also provide proposals, hopefully to try and mitigate some of those negatives from people moving forward in that. But it's you put out a request for proposals and then you sit crossing your fingers that organizations will put that together.
Go ahead, Terry.
I've had a chance to review the RFP and I see the shelter model is changing a little bit, probably with accountability and time limits and so forth. I have no knowledge of what any of those are. So I understand that this proposal RFP can move forward, or this proposal with the county. But to my knowledge, doesn't the resolution for the city then have to be satisfied? As far as funding for any services?
That's not my understanding of the resolution. I'm not the attorney that looks at them, but I have asked on that. And so from the city standpoint, city staff will be put together to be partnered with county staff to evaluate proposals if they come in. And then you asked about, some of these things that look at a different shelter model. Proposals could be provided to us that don't have those things. And so it's one thing to go, if I draw the analogy, to go to a car dealership and say, here are all the things I'm looking for in my ideal vehicle. That doesn't mean that there's one on the lot, but you might need a vehicle. So those things are all open for discussion and negotiation. I will tell you that, to my surprise, one of the reasons, number one, the county and their discussions as far as what makes them the most comfortable with being a funding partner with the city were accountability measures. That was something that was discussed at the county board level and at the committee level. That wasn't necessarily a city of Wausau saying we have to have this, but I will tell you in meeting with unanimously, I spent half a day sitting down with people experiencing homelessness. And when discussing accountability, unanimously, they all felt that it was incredibly important from a shelter model to have that in place. And I spoke at the public health and safety meeting the other night. And one of the things that caught me off guard is one of the individuals I talked to recently left several years of being unhoused. And his words were, I won the Section 8 lottery. Like, I got selected, worked with Tracy, found housing, was really a happy person at this moment and felt like he was thriving and saw a future for himself. And when we talked about, like, well, what if shelter while you were unhoused had these type of parameters where there are expectations placed on you, and shelter's it's not a place for you to be for a year. It's not designed for that. It's a place for you to be to start taking action to move forward. He looked at me and kind of chuckled and said, I'd have left homelessness a long time ago if that were the case here. And he happened to be one of the first people I talked to. So very carefully just asking, what does accountability look like and how would that impact you in homelessness? And I'm talking to people that slept in the shelter the night before. And they all felt that that was an important key component that would help them in their trying to achieve stability in their life. So it's not a deal breaker. I think for the county or the city, we need to look at what proposals we get. But we also think that in the long-term plan of what should this look like, living in a shelter, not being a long-term solution for an individual is very important. And how do we measure that and how do we create accountability? That remains to be seen. What we stopped short of doing was telling anyone, here's what you have to do. Like, ideally, we would award someone, and on the 30,000 foot level, we all agree on what we're trying to accomplish and how to do it. But it's also not our job to tell an organization how to function on a micro level. Like, here are what the norms within your organization are going to be. But we want to talk about those things when the time comes, or if the time comes, to award a proposal to someone.
Well, certainly the things you're addressing are important for any adult who's moving forward to be responsible, being accountable and so forth. My concern was voting for the county resolution and having a city resolution. There was a resolution passed on December 26th at a council meeting. that was amended. And I proposed that amendment and it did pass unanimously. And the reason I'm saying it still has to satisfy the council resolution, I just wanted to bring it just to clarify that. I did talk to the city attorney today and she said she felt that this was something that still needed to be done. What it says is, be it further resolved that prior to agreement for services, a public participation process will occur for which efforts will be specifically made to invite meaningful engagement from those experiencing homelessness and participating in the care of the homeless, should the homeless choose to participate. And I understand that even if this resolution passed, that still has to be satisfied. Is that your understanding?
I could see where that would be one interpretation. I haven't spoken to the city attorney and shared with her the work that has been done to connect and invite the homeless population to be able to speak to myself to talk about what their needs are. Much effort has been put forth in that regard. And so, like, I can't answer to what the city attorney's opinion on something like that would be. If the city attorney said that I had to post a meeting and be like, come one, come all, and here's, it's going to be run from this time to this time to give them an opportunity to speak to that. I'm not opposed to that. I think what's far more effective and more comfortable for that population of individuals is inviting them to a private meeting where they can be honest and not be surrounded by other individuals that might be critical of their ability to communicate. So if the city attorney directs us to do that, I don't have any objection to that. I'm not confident that that is a effective way to get meaningful information from that population because, I mean, I learned a tremendous amount from sitting across the table from those individuals and just giving them the ability to have honest conversations with us. And they were not like super eager to do it. They were scared to sit down with a representative of the city or the police department who's doing this. But I can tell you, my hand hasn't moved fast or taking notes, and it was incredibly thoughtful. And by the time I take a step back and look at like, what were the things that really mattered to this population that I was talking to? Like, there's no rocket science involved in it. It had to do with respect. It had to do with accountability. It had to do with humanization. It had to do with collaboration and some of it is simply, some of it was space and how do they do that? And the concept that they've experienced because of our capacity issues in the lottery system and who gets a bed on a particular night, like those, like I could have guessed that would be the case, but when learning about what makes them tick and how do they feel as human beings, that was very insightful. And to see their support for accountability and their recognition of the challenges when you have an emergency shelter that mixes all the different populations of individuals, like that was very impactful to me. And some of what they shared with us is reflected in that RFP.
And I understand that you've made tremendous efforts to communicate in that regard, but a public participation process is something that has to be noted publicly, and I don't recall that there was anything like that at this point. I agree with you that many people are more comfortable speaking to small groups. In fact, I think if you recall, we talked about that at the council meeting, and you suggested that they come to, for example, a public health and safety meeting instead of a big group. But we did stress the fact that a public participation was important, and I believe.
Well, I'll tell you that I'll contact our city attorney and share with her information and get her legal opinion on what's necessary. And what I'm not prepared to do, and it's not my hill to die on with how this gets funded. What's important to me is that we fund shelter services here. And I wouldn't be willing to put the funding of shelter services at risk for the difference in having a public meeting.
And I don't know why public participation would put it at risk. I think it would just be different attitudes about what's important with shelter services. I don't think anybody's looking for an opinion about or hoping that somebody's going to come up and say, I don't want shelter services.
Well,
or-
I'm not worried about that at all. I'm talking about the amount of work it takes to put all this together, and to be honest with you, like my time and my staff's time, and I don't want it to be wasted. And so we often look at things that feel good, look good, and we try and find an efficient way to get that information because we have other jobs to do as well. So
Mhm.
if the city attorney tells me that based on her review of the resolution, a public meeting is necessary in order for the funding to be allocated, I'm saying I will host a public meeting. If the city attorney tells me that it's not necessary to do that, then I have no intention of doing that because I think we have a great RFP. I think we have tremendous amount of knowledge already and we consistently receive more and we apply all that to what we're doing. And I don't think a public meeting would be as effective as what we have done. So if I have to do it in order to save funding to not be in violation of a resolution, more than happy to do that. If it doesn't require me to do that in a legal opinion, then we're going to move forward and keep doing what we're doing. That's at least where I stand right now, but haven't given it tremendous thought.
I just wanted to have this clarified.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good discussion. Any other comments on the resolution?
Yeah, one quick one that, based on being in our public health and safety meeting the other night, a meeting with much of our council and talking about the partnership between the city and the county. I would say on behalf of the city and that committee, I would just say thank you to the county. We really appreciate that partnership and we feel like that's going to point us in the right direction to be successful.
Thank you. And I think it shows with the vote that we had the other night on this resolution, almost overwhelming, outside of one vote, everybody else voted for it. So I think that tells the community that we want to be involved and we want to help and we want to partner with the city to be able to solve this problem. So thank you.
And I'd even add that the county would thank the city for having borne the brunt of this forever. So thank you too.
Absolutely. If there's no further discussion on the resolution, we'll move to 4B, discussion of final report progress. So I did receive, I believe, everybody's report that I'm compiling into a PowerPoint, and I'll send the draft out prior to the next meeting so we can take a look at it next meeting. And then as far as the presentation of the final report, I know that at least Administrator Leonard and I had some conversations on the presentation part of it to the full county board, and it would probably be nice if everybody could speak to their portion of that presentation, because I think it'll put some weight to that presentation if everybody could speak to their portion of it.
It's kind of ad hoc that we're each putting information together on behalf of our organizations or ourselves. So you've had the opportunity to look at, and I don't, maybe you haven't, but are we on the right page? Like the city worked to put together like a timeline, PowerPoint presentation and white paper, so to speak, on all the history of dealing with homeless issues in Wausau. Did we hit a bullseye or are we?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to.
From what I've seen, spot on. And I think the timeline and the history, going back to early 2000s.
The day I was hired.
25 years ago, whatever that was.
That's the timeline you got. I can speak to our experience since then.
So yeah, I think everything that I've received so far is spot on to, your portion of what you see in the homelessness situation. And I think it's really good information that I think the county board will appreciate overall. And I think the community will appreciate it as well.
We're going to present it to the city council also, or just the county board?
I believe so. If
Is it a joint
you want
task
to
force?
take that back to the city council and propose that.
I mean, in all transparency, I think that was always the intent, is this this would be presented to the city council as well as the county board. I don't know that, I can't anticipate that the mayor would have an objection to agendizing that as an educational component for a city meeting. I just haven't asked him to do that or had a conversation, so.
So let's finalize the report and then we can present it. You know, if everybody is on board with the way it's formatted and the information that's in there at the next meeting, we'll finalize it. And then we'll run it, you know, by corp council and anybody else that we need to run it through.
No, I think it's similar process that the chief referenced for the county board, of course, work with Chair Gibbs to get that on an appropriate agenda for education. Since your task force charter now has been extended through April, makes sense that through April 1st, I should say, it makes sense that that meeting would be sometime in April for that educational presentation and coordinating with the city to have those presentations in close proximity, I would imagine. So you just need to do one set of prep rather than do a presentation, wait 3 weeks and have to think about it again. But logistically, those things should be able to be ironed out.
I'll get it sent out probably this weekend sometime, so you can all take a look at it and then give me your feedback prior to the meeting next week, and then I'll adjust as necessary. And then we'll bring that presentation in the next meeting, if that works. All right. Next meeting I have is Wednesday, March 26th here at the County Courthouse Assembly Room. And item number 6, do I have a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Conley with a motion, and Ms. Tilka for a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjournment, we are adjourned. Thank you.